Thanks so much. So today I'm going to give you an update on where we are budget-wise. And I'm going to give you an opportunity to chime in with questions. My name is Beth Blue. I am in the Office of Budget, Finance, and Award Management. That's the CFO shop at NSF. I'm in the budget division. I'm the branch chief for the program analysis branch. That's essentially the formulation side of the budget office. So today I'm going to give you an update on where we are in fiscal year FY22. I'll give you an update on the request, the budget request we just sent up to Congress for FY23, and that went, when did that go? April? It's all been a blur. It went very recently. And then I'll talk a little bit about what's on the horizon for FY24, because we're already there already, starting to talk about fiscal year 24. So starting with our current year, FY22, NSF received its appropriation. Finally, it was signed into law on March 15th. So what is that, 6 months after the beginning of the fiscal year? We received a nice appropriation. We were provided with $8.8 billion. And that was not as much as we requested, which is typically the case, but it was a nice outcome. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. What we are doing now is we are negotiating our FY22 current plan with OMB and then congressional appropriators now. And what that means is they give us our appropriation and they give us guidance on how it needs to be used. And we have to get back with them with essentially a somewhat detailed plan on how we're going to implement that guidance they gave to us and what we're going to do with that funding. It's quite literally a letter, 5 or 6 pages long, and we're just responding to the appropriation that they very kindly made for us. So that is under discussion right now. If you've been to any NSF budget presentations before, you've probably seen this slide. It's the infamous appropriations drift slide. It's so infamous that the former budget director had this put on the top of his, or somebody put it on the top of his cake when he retired. This shows you the bars are the number of days from October 1st, the start of the fiscal year, until NSF received its appropriation, and it's going from 1992 to 2022. So this year we received our appropriation in 164 days. The average over these last decades is about 90 days. You'll see that the last time we received our appropriation on October 1st was actually back in 1997. But here we are in 22, we have our money and we're moving ahead. So the enacted funding, as I said, provided $8.8 billion. That's $1.3 billion below what we requested, but it's 4% over what was enacted in 2021. So we're happy about that. And within it, that enacted level, it provided $215 million for EPSCoR, for NSF's EPSCoR program. That's 7.5% over the 21 enacted level. So the rate of growth for EPSCoR was higher than it was for NSF's total bottom line. So you can see that you guys are very valued on the Hill, and you were provided for in this appropriation. So that's a nice little plus there. So here are all the numbers: 21 acted, 22 request, and then the 22 enacted level that we received. Some noteworthy items from the 22 appropriation include the establishment of the new Directorate for Technology, Innovation, and Partnerships, or otherwise known as TIP. We asked for that in the 22 request, and they gave us the approval to move ahead with that. So we are, and you may have already seen some of their dear colleague letters, or maybe a solicitation or two already out there for TIP. It gave us targeted increases to support broadening to participation in STEM programs, both in the research and related activities account and the education and human resources account. It provides NSF with transfer authority to move the Graduate Research Fellowship Program to consolidate it all into the Education and Human Resources account. For many years, it was split between the RNRA, Research and Related Activities account, and the Education and Human Resources account, and we requested that they allow us to consolidate it into EHR, and they agreed. So that's a nice thing. It also had the appropriation, the accompanying language, report language. It encouraged mid-scale awards in EPSCoR jurisdictions. So that's mid-scale track 1 and track 2 awards in EPSCoR jurisdictions. Also, I wanted to give you an update on the American Rescue Plan. As you may or may not know, last year, the ARP law was assigned in March 2021. It provided $600 million to NSF, and it's available through September 2022. So thus far, we've used this funding to fund over 1,400 awards, totaling over $463 million. So that means in this year right now, we still are working on that last tranche of funding that we still have available, and so so we're using these funds in FY22 as well. Okay, what about the budget year request? This is the budget request for 2023 that was just delivered to Congress a couple of weeks ago. Here's the lovely cover. If you want to read about it, you can find it on nsf.gov and just search on budget, and it will give you all the gory details right there for this budget and all the ones back for 20 years or so. We asked in this budget for $10.49 billion. And in this budget, it really is aligned by investment themes, and these themes support the director's pillars. So the themes are these 6 arrows going back and forth, and they support the pillars going up and down: strengthening established NSF, inspiring the missing millions, and accelerating partnerships. So some highlights of the 23 request, of course, are aligned along these themes. It's intended, the funding request is intended to spur R&D in climate change and clean energy technology research. It's intended to advance equity in science and engineering, and that through programs that increase participation for underrepresented communities and geographical regions in STEM. So that falls very squarely in EPSCoR jurisdictions. It expedites development in emerging areas and emerging industries, fosters science and technology advances through construction and procurement of research facilities and instrumentation, supports our needs for organizational excellence. And I'll also make note on this last bullet that both the account and the Directorate for Education and Human Resources, or EHR, we've asked the Hill if we can rename that to STEM Education, or EDU for short. We think this better represents the totality of the work that EHR does these days. As you can imagine, the name Education and Human Resources, they get some phone calls at this point in time asking about personnel issues. So we wanted to, as we moved on well past the days that moniker was represented the work they do. So we've asked the Hill for this, and we've gotten positive feedback on that, but we wait for them to tell us. Okay, funding for 23. As I said, it's $10.49 billion. This is $1.6 billion above the 22 enacted level. That's the level, the budget we just got, the appropriation we just received. It's $2 billion above the 21 enacted level. Within this request is $247 million for EPSCoR, and that's 15% above the enacted level. So take a look at that for a second. Take your screenshots, and we can I can answer some questions in a minute if you would like. So the status of the budget right now is in April, we briefed appropriation subcommittee staffers. In May, the director has testified in the last 2 weeks before House and Senate appropriation subcommittees. I believe in the Senate committee, he was there with the NASA administrator. So he is out and about and making the rounds talking about the 23 budget request. He may have one more hearing on the schedule. We're waiting for confirmation that that's going to happen or not, but know that he is out there and he's representing NSF well before appropriators. We continue to follow up with all kind of questions that we are getting from congressional staff to make sure they fully understand our budget request and that we are able to answer any questions or concerns they might have. And I will tell you that we get questions in the budget office. We get a lot of questions touching on EPSCoR. So you are very much on their radars. So what's next? Well, we're in fiscal year 2022, and that will end on September 30th. And after that, we'll see what's going to happen on for fiscal year 23 on October 1st. Will we continue with short-term funding through a continuing resolution? Will we receive our full appropriation, or would there possibly be a lapse in appropriations? We don't know. We will see on October 1st or thereabout. FY24 budget planning has already started. NSF senior leadership is already discussing what our 24 budget issues might look like, our major themes and priority areas. We are waiting for OMB's guidance on 24. They typically in June send out to most federal agencies very detailed guidance on some high order policy questions from the administration that we need to address in our own budget presentations. We are also waiting on a joint memo from OMB and the Office of Science and Technology Policy that could come out June, July, August. We're never quite sure when. It lays out the R&D priorities Fed-wide. And quite typically, NSF is able to nestle right into those higher order 5, 6, 7 policy priorities they have for R&D. We usually are able to support those quite well in what we're already doing. But we're always looking for that memo to seek that guidance, to get that guidance from the administration on the R&D priorities. Okay, that's all I have right now. And if anybody has any questions, I would be happy to answer those now. Sandra, are you there?
Oh, I am, Beth. Sorry. Yeah. There are no questions in the question and answer chat box, and nothing in the chat box.
Yep.
But colleagues, Beth has said she'll put periodic places where you can ask questions. So if anyone has anything on the material she's covered, she's happy to take any questions right now.
Okay, that's fine. Anybody's free to ping me at any time. Ask me if you have any follow-up questions.
Looks like that there are a couple, I'm sorry, there are a couple in the Q&A. I'm happy to read them, or if you want to navigate. I know you have screens up, so do you want me to read them?
No, I've got it now. I see it now.
Okay. Okay.
It's just a
Perfect.
little odd because I see like 3 people. This is a little.
I know the webinar format makes it odd, but they're engaged and listening. But I hear you. I felt that way this morning too.
Okay, 2 questions. Is your office preparing for the various scenarios that may come with the passage of USICA? And what I can tell you is, yes, we're absolutely having discussions about USICA, but that's about all I can tell you right now. It's very much on the radar. My understanding is that Amanda Greenwell, the director of the Office of Ledge Affairs, is coming after me, and she may be able to speak to that. But I happen to know that my boss, the budget director, was in a meeting about that just earlier today. So it's on the radar, absolutely. Another question is, was the budget approval delayed by COVID or something else? The 2022 budget, it was delayed. It's delayed every year. Congress has a hard time for various and sundry reasons making the October 1st of the fiscal year date, and I would love to be able to explain it, but I cannot. But this is the environment we've been working in for 25 years. The budget comes late. So I assume you're talking about the 22 budget that was just the appropriation that we just received in March. So